it's cheaper, spend it later when it costs more. And so
Absolutely.
getting ahead of it is the right way to go, because that will keep your property taxes lower. You said you're heading out to a project, Erin?
We are. So we are going to jump in the car right after I'm on air with you to McKenzie, North Dakota. And we are going to visit a small woodworking shop owned by a man there in McKenzie who utilized our REAP program, so the Rural Energy for America program, to partially fund a solar project that will bring down the costs of his energy bill, save him some money at his little woodworking shop in McKenzie. So I'm excited to see a project that went from, an application to a finished product, and to highlight those opportunities. Again, so North Dakotans can see it doesn't always have to be $15 million projects going to, large organizations. It can also be small $10,000 grants that help people make investments in their businesses and in their homes that save them money in the long run.
Another one of those who would have thought moments, really. Erin, if people need to contact you or they want to know more about these programs, a lot of city commissioners right now, city council members are listening to you. What do they do?
Well, you can visit us at, look up USDA.gov, rural development. You can specifically focus on North Dakota. You can reach out to our office. As I mentioned, we're all across the state, and invite us to any opportunities we can take advantage of to make sure that your members, that your constituents, that your small businesses in your community, so they can know about their opportunity. As I always say, you can't solve problems unless you know what they are, but you also can't find solutions if you don't know they exist. And so we want to make sure that North Dakotans know about the opportunities available through USDA Rural Development and how they can put them to work in their communities.
Yeah. Thank you, Erin. You're going to do well at this. I'm sure we'll talk many more times. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Joel. Take care. Happy Friday.
You bet. Erin Oban, ladies and gentlemen. Want to get a road report out there for you. This was sent in to me about 30-some minutes ago, so I'm sorry if I'm late in getting it out. It said at mile marker 327, 329 on 94 headed west, I had to pull over because the rain was too hard to see. Saw lightning in the south before the heavy rain started. What a weird day. I hope I don't have snow as I go further. A man that knows exactly what's going on out there, and he told us that this was going to happen, and that's Too Tall Tom Szymanski in our weather cave. Tom?
Yep, we got showered.
Oh, Vladimir. I think his middle name must be Vladimir. It's not Vladimir's fault. What about Ukraine?
I don't get that.
He's back. Yeah, let's just ignore it. It's just a liberal news bias. When you sit there and you look at what's going on in Ukraine,
Putin?
they're not telling the other side of the story. Why Russia is doing this. Let me see if I could use some of the bullet points that an individual like this would use. You ready? He's bringing Christianity to Ukraine. Oh, wait. He's cleansing Ukraine from drug dealers. Wait. They've allowed too much illegal immigration, so they deserve this. Wait. You know what? They should have seen this coming. How did they not prepare for it? It's not Russia's fault. Wait, there's got to be another one. What other excuse could he use? Are you thinking of any, Abby?
You got it. You're on a roll.
They're getting a little too full of themselves. Maybe if they just need to take a step back and think about those traditional values, they wouldn't have been attacked this way. This used to be part of the Soviet Union. Why did they get to leave? What else would he use? Be careful here, Abby, because if we say too many of these things, this guy's hero, Tucker Carlson, we'll start using him. We'll start hearing it on Fox News. Hey, they used to be part of the Soviet Union, so why do they think they get to leave? I mean, I'm joking about it, but the truth is, if you're going to write into me about all of these public policy and public initiatives, and you're sitting there and you're supporting Vladimir Putin, and you're blaming the current administration here in the United States versus Vladimir Putin, you've lost. I mean, you have lost all credibility with this talk show host. All. I mean, I can see your phone number. I don't know what your name is. I just know this. I know that when I see the number, what I'm going to think of is someone that this other text message that came in makes me think. Now, I've never been one of those individuals who say, why don't you just pack up your bags and move there if you like it. So, you know what? It takes all kinds of thoughts and people to make a great country. And so I hope you don't move. But I also don't respect your opinion when you like Vladimir Putin. I don't. This person texts in and says, the texter is a traitor. Pack your bags and move to Russia, pal. ASAP. Don't count me in with that. I also want to add that if you text back in a hurry and say, I'm not a supporter of Putin, then, and I didn't read your text message yet, which I didn't read your text message back, and you write back, I'm not a supporter of Putin, then maybe you thought that something you had written did support Vladimir Putin. The man is a murdering thug, and he is killing innocent women and children and Ukrainians daily. He is blowing apart their country. He is taking their lives, their futures, and their country away from them. And anyone who would put this blame on anyone else other than Vladimir Putin and Russia, shame on you. I mean, shame on you. If you want to sit and breathe in that carbon dioxide that the Tucker Carlsons and the Fox Newses and that come out of Mar-a-Lago blaming Joe Biden for this, go ahead. I mean, go ahead. I can't stop you from doing that, but I can sit back, watch, shake my head, and wonder, who raised you? I mean, what common sense do you even have? Consider texting in. You have no idea how great this makes it on a Friday to be able to read some of these. It just keep hope alive. It said, do you remember when supporting Russia was considered practically treasonous, but now these Fox News loving patriots support them? It's this person goes on and says, more and some stronger things, but it's a crazy world, as they point out. Another one, the Communist Party took Putin from poverty and obscurity to wealth and fame. Where do you think his loyalties are? Sure seems to me he hates democracies. Tucker Carlson is a fool. Another one, Joel, I'm not supporting Putin, but don't tell me every problem we have is his fault. And if you think it is like Biden does, then why are we not at war with him? Why are we not at war with Putin? I got to read this again. Maybe I read it wrong. It says, Joel, I'm not supporting Putin, but don't tell me every problem we have is his fault. And if you think it is like Biden does, then why are we not at war with him? Oh, I'm getting what you're saying. You're saying that because gas prices are higher, I believe they're higher because of Putin, we should go to war with Russia. I think I'll just let that one go. Another one, the governor of Florida is going to war with Disney is just an example. The governor of Florida is an idiot. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it than that. Getting into a fight with Disney because you're worried about a particular policy. The governorship is supposed to be far above that. And I just want to say this in regards to all you individuals who fully support the state of Florida having the courage to take on Disney. What are you taking on? I mean, is it your belief that Mickey Mouse is indoctrinating your children? I mean, what are you taking on? Describe to me what you think Disney has done wrong. I would love to hear that. And maybe I'm missing that in all of this. Call in 1-800-880-5346. I want to hear what you feel Disney has done wrong that is worthy of the governor of Florida, one of our largest states, picking a fight and keeping that fight and threatening people. And please, though, don't ever call me and talk about how I believe in cancel culture when you're sitting there saying that people shouldn't go to Disney. I mean, I really curiously want to, or I really want to find out how you got there, what your thought process is. Andrew, you're on News and Views. Go ahead, Andrew.
Hey, Joel, I was wondering if we could leave all that other junk behind us and pick up yesterday on the ethanol conversation.
Love to.
I'm just curious, where do you see ethanol going 5, 10, maybe 20 years from now? You know, you follow the industry. What's your view on it?
I personally believe that ethanol is going to be part of our future for as long as we run combustible engines.
Okay, and I agree with you. The thing is I think the EV thing is going to go a little slower than we hope it will, because I don't think America has it in them to start the mining process that we need for rare earth metals and all the other metals that go into it. But this is something that needs to be brought up a little more, and I can give you some contacts. Is the real future of ethanol is sustainable aviation fuel. That is where the ethanol industry is targeting itself to get into, because the sustainable aviation fuel market is going to be double of what the current ethanol market is. And I would imagine if somebody put an electric plane in front of me and you, I bet you $50, me and you neither get on it. I mean, the battery technology is not going to be there to be powering planes anytime soon. And I think that's something we need to do as an industry, is start promoting that it's not vehicles. Yes, it's going to be vehicles for 30 or 40 years, because the vehicles we have now are not going to go away. They're going to keep running for a while, but we need to get on the sustainable aviation fuel method.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Lot to chew on there. He's right when he says neither he nor I would want to get on a plane right now that's run by batteries. That being said, it wasn't that long ago I wouldn't want to be in a car halfway in the middle of a snowstorm that was run by batteries either. And I wouldn't think twice about that now. I have family members that have an electric car, and the first time I ever drove it, I almost got in trouble because, I just putzed around the lake until I got on the county road, and then I went south knowing that there wasn't going to be any law enforcement there, and thought, let's give her a test. Let's see how she goes. And I think I almost broke my neck. I mean, the thing had snap, and believe me, I slowed down. I pretty well followed the law after that. But I will say this, that the technology and what we do with it changes, right? I mean, it changes. How would you like to have put all your eggs in the basket of blockbuster movies, right? I mean, Abby, you're too young to even remember people like your dad and I renting movies.
No, we rented movies when I was really young.
VHS?
We had VHS movies. I think we rented more DVDs.
Right, and then DVDs came along, and you rented those.
Yeah, but there was a movie rental place in Wapaton. I think there were two at one point, actually. But yeah, we would rent some when I was pretty young.
Right, and
yeah.
I was trying to think of an episode. I'm a huge West Wing fan, and I was trying to think of an episode of The West Wing, and I was like, okay, I've got to find my DVDs of The West Wing. I'll find this. Hello. I mean, they must have went the same place my mom put my, my Spider-Man cartoons because,
Would you think of that over
comic books?
Just go to Netflix?
That's
or
the point.
Wherever it's at. I don't know.
Right. I mean, that's the point. You don't even think about it anymore because the technology changes. I mean, the way I invested in things, I'm shocked that I didn't put every bit of money I have into fax machines.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to belittle what he said about aviation fuel because he's certainly right. Ethanol is a hotter, cleaner, it's a faster burning fuel, right? I mean, when I first started working with individuals promoting ethanol, they were on the motorhome, they were on the cruiser, and they asked me to come to the Indy race at the Speedway in Chicago. And I'm watching Indy cars go around and around, and they're powered solely by ethanol. And I got a chance to visit with the drivers afterwards, got a chance to visit with a number of people, and they were all in. I mean, they were all in on this fuel that could provide the power that they had. One other side note, too, I got to hang out with Gene Simmons for the whole day. He was there. He knew he was the spokesperson that ethanol brought in. Gene Simmons from KISS.
Yeah.
And so he knew, you heard him speak on it. He knew absolutely nothing, nothing about it.
Just the name. They brought him in for that.
Just the name. He got up there and he never didn't even understand it could come from corn, and the media picked up on it. And I think that might've been the last time they paid him to be a spokesperson. David, you're on News and Views. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Joel.
Morning to you.
So, I understand that we need to have all sources of electric and gas and all that stuff. But who's paying the road tax on these electrical vehicles? How's that being collected?
I have mentioned that. That is an absolutely great question because the whole road system is based upon a gas tax. And you already saw some of that, David, when I don't know how old you are. I just know what type of mileage every vehicle my dad ever had got, right? And it gets way less than what my wife's does, way less than others in my family does. And so you're already behind on some of that because you're paying it on a percentage per gallon. And if they're using less gallons, where are we at, right? And so that is a very fair question, David.
And just one more point. I just want to know, where are we supposed to get all the electricity from? I mean, we can't put, you just said it, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. I'm all for wind power and solar power, but I'm also for coal and natural gas power too.
And I have been saying, thank you, David. My goodness. I mean, I doubt David and I are from the same party, but I'll tell you this, I've been agreeing with him for a lifetime. It's all of the above when it comes to power. The people in the Biden administration that say you're going to completely get rid of fossil fuels, they're foolish. I could use the word idiotic. I could use a lot of different words, but they're wrong. And it certainly isn't going to happen in my lifetime. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to see a bigger piece of the pie go here, there, wherever. But if for no other reason than the safety of the nation, I think that you need to keep all your opportunities open of where you can draw energy from and where you can use it from. I mean, that's what used to drive me nuts every time I went to one of the most beautiful communities in the world, which is Williston. And I'd go to Williston and you'd see all this flaring on the way up. You'd see all this energy, this power that was being flared off. Now it's better, but it ain't great. It's still not great. And that is one source. Coal is a source. Obviously oil, obviously wind, obviously hydro. There's all types of things that we can look at, and from the very crops that farmers raise in the field. And so I got in some trouble. I got some negative messages pushed back to me because I had a number of farmers talking about how you can't sit there and you got to be all in on supporting the oil industry 100% and oil. And then I mentioned to them that ethanol takes away some of the usage of oil. I mean, it does. Biodiesel, both the soybean industry and the corn industry in our state, takes away the need for a percentage of oil. And so you can't sit there and say you're not subsidized doing it, because we do subsidize ethanol and biodiesel. And if you're saying, okay, where's my subsidy check, Joel? Okay. A big part of it is the fact that we tell people you will burn this. It's called the renewable fuel standard. It's been jockeyed around with. Trump jockeyed around with it. Biden jockeyed around with it. So but it was a huge win for us here in the upper Midwest. But it is government injecting itself into the marketplace saying you will. That isn't the purest form of capitalism you're ever going to hear about. That isn't. And so the farmers that get mad at me when I point that out, first off, it's a win, and I'm glad we have it. And when I say we, I mean me too, not just you who raise crops, but also take a step back before you think that, oh my God, the government, when in fact you're benefiting from government big time. You are. Let's get to the weather cave. A lot of people look. North Dakota, for one of our home base shows. That's right. News and Views will be at Coffee with KFGO. Thank you to Vision Ford for all of that. It's called The Grove in Horace. I talked to Jeannie yesterday. She's pumped up. We're pumped up. I get to hang out with her on Wednesday a little bit, set things up, and these are fun. These are a lot of fun.
I know. I wish I could go to them.
Yeah. Well, you
Someone's got to steer the ship.
through the airwaves. You kind of do, right?
Yeah.
But we will be in Horace at The Grove on Thursday. Thank you again to Vision Ford. I hope you turn out. The coffee, the rolls, all of that's on us. You order hash browns, you're going to pay for it yourself. How's that?
That's good. That's
pretty
a good
fair
deal.
rules. And we'll have most of the old team that you hear each and every day on the radio there. And I want to thank Bar 9 last night for sponsoring what was a great night where we got a chance to give away that Traeger grill. I was visiting with the guys with Barnesville Meat, the Barnesville grocery store.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to them. I'm having a beer with these guys and Dean's Bulk Service, right? And they're just guys. They're just my kind of guys, all right? So we're having a cold one. We're talking about all the different products. And they were eating. They had frog legs. They had different brats. I mean, I got to tell people about the brats I ordered. I do. But I want to check with Sarah Heinrich, our farm and ranch director, and ask her, have you ever had frog legs?
Yes, I had them once. My dad told me that they were chicken strips, and he lied to me, so I tried them, and they were frog legs.
And did you like
they
them?
taste like chicken strips? Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All three of us girls ate the whole thing, and then he laughed, and he was like, they're actually frog legs. Yes.
Have you
There
ever?
can't be a
have
lot
I
of
had
meat
them?
on them, right?
Yes.
But these are long. I mean, it's a different frog than you see living in Ottertail Lake.
Right. And it was all breaded.
Yeah.
It was all just breaded,
You ever-
mostly. I ate a bunch of breading.
Have you ever eaten alligator?
No.
Because these guys last night were talking about eating alligator too. Would you buy a brat with peanut butter and jelly in it?
No.
Ooh.
I did last night.
I'm intrigued by
Did
that.
you?
Yep. I haven't tasted them yet, but I ordered them. They're all right. Give me the markets when we come back. All right. So she's like, I
All
was
right,
supposed to
sounds
give
good.
the market.
Right across the screen.
Quiz, you ready? You love my spot quiz.
Yep. Okay.
So, obviously, Johnny Cash, right?
Yep.
He had a younger brother
Yikes.
who I heard perform in Valley City at the North Dakota Winter Show.
Really?
Yep.
That's cool.
Now, his younger brother was also a musical artist, right?
Okay.
Certainly not as
Clearly, yeah.
successful because you didn't, and I would argue that going back and listening to his work, he wasn't terrible, but he certainly wasn't that good, right?
His brother?
His brother.
Okay.
But I'm going to give you 3 chances to give his name, understanding that Johnny Cash was called Johnny. That's a clue. Go ahead.
But was that John? Was that his real name?
I don't think John was his real name, but that's a whole nother side.
Yeah.
My point is E. Think E.
Okay.
Johnny.
Maybe that person's calling to help me.
Should we find out?
Jimmy?
See, now you're going down the right path.
Okay.
And Jimmy's a no.
Okay. Does it start with a J?
We already just it's not Johnny and it's not Jimmy and it's not Joey. How's that?
Okay. Charlie?
No.
Cool.
Yep.
I have one more guess. I need another hint then.
Okay, from the book of
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's all I know.
So would it be Matthew E? Would it be
Lukey. Was it one of those 4?
No.
No.
It was Tommy.
Oh, what?
I was thinking of Johnny when I said from the book of. That was a bad clue.
No, that was a horrible
That was
clue.
a terrible clue. The E should have been enough. Tommy.
Okay.
If you could, find me some Tommy Cash music. I
I'll
just
work
want to
on
show
it.
the audience
I'll
what we're
work on
talking
it.
about. Just want to let you know, for those that attended last night, I really appreciate it. It was fun watching this really cool couple from Lisbon win the grill. And maybe if you're just joining us now, I was sitting in a booth last night at this giveaway that we have 2 different shows here in the East that you may not get a chance to hear in the West, but one is called It Takes Two with Amy and JJ, and the other is Afternoons Live with Tyler Axness. Well, yesterday, those 2 shows gave away a Traeger grill at Bar 9. Is that Fargo or West Fargo? It's Fargo, right?
I think it's West Fargo.
Okay.
Technically.
I mean, it's all kind of one city now. There's no gap in between the 2. Anyway.
Who built the grill again? Was it us?
We didn't build it. We assembled it.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, we put it together. Abby and I have done that 2 years in a row, and we're getting so good at it that
You can hire us.
We don't even whine about it anymore.
Well, I mean, we still do, but
Did we need to even look at the directions this year?
yes, I did.
Okay.
Maybe the third one.
Okay, here's the big difference this year. Did we get the legs on right the first time this year?
Yeah, we didn't have to fix anything.
Exactly. We got it done
The
right.
first one, we had to go retrace our steps a bit.
Once or twice.
Yeah.
Now we're like, can of corn. Anyway, so I was sitting there with this couple from Lisbon last night that were watching this case. I want to make sure I get this right so people don't look at it and say, Joel, you didn't say it. It's a 1913 3060 case. The old great big steel, wheel tractor, you hook the belt to it and hook that to the thrashing machine and whatnot. The minute I saw it, I knew that you could tell it didn't have a big steam chamber. So I figured it was an old diesel fuel, something like that. It was gas. I mean, 1913, it was gas. Okay, so that one jumped out at me a little bit, but we're following the price and it just keeps going up. And these guys looked at me and they said, guess the price. And of course, I guess, I said, well, something like that has to be worth, I don't know. I bet you people will give 100, maybe as much as 200 grand for something like that. They just broke out laughing. It sold in the end for $1,470,000. I say this because there are many of you that are working on the farm right now, frustrated as all get out because you can't get out there and do anything. It's too wet. You can't get out in the field. You got another storm coming. Some of you are getting stormed on right now. Go walk in the tree belt and see what the old man threw back there or grandpa threw back there. Because some of this stuff, I realize you'd know if you had a 1913 3060 case in the trees. I'm not, but some of this stuff, and they were showing me on the auction bid last night how some of the equipment was going for from those days. I think it was an 8-bottom plow they had that they showed me that was just, it was astronomical what some of this stuff was going for. And so I guess that's my way of saying I had fun. Let's get to Ed. Ed, you're on News and Views.
Hey, Joel. It's Earth Day, so I just had to call in.
Okay. I recognize the voice. Thanks for doing that.
There's one thing that seems to keep getting lost in all this talk about energy and where we're going. And the number is 350 parts per million. That's how much, Bill McKibben started a group 20 years ago called 350.org. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was based on the fact that when we get to 350 parts per million in the atmosphere of carbon dioxide, we are at a tipping point and we probably can't return. Well, the latest readings over at Mauna Loa in Hawaii for parts per million in the atmosphere is 420 now. We talk about using all types of energy, but we don't have a choice now. We have to do anything we can to stop putting CO2 in the atmosphere and other greenhouse gases. Otherwise, we're doomed. Now, this is settled science, it's been the 1850s, it was proven that if you put CO2 in a test tube and shine a light through it, the more CO2 you put in there, the less light comes through. That's what happens when the sun shines down on the Earth, reflects the sunlight the Earth does, sends it back into outer space. The trouble is, now with all this CO2, it doesn't let enough heat or sunlight back into the atmosphere, and it just keeps piling up. So we got a huge problem, and we've got to do something about it now.
So, Ed, you've been a champion for a long time of this conversation. I respect it immensely. When you look at different administrations, this was talked about in the Biden administration. This was, or not the Biden, but the Obama administration. This was ignored during the Trump administration by and large, and now it's being talked about in the Biden administration. But there are many who believe just what you said, that the science shows we've got to do everything we can right now to end this, but it's not happening. And it isn't just not happening here, it's not happening in other parts of the world. We're one of the biggest polluters. I get that, but other countries are as well. So, you're a former legislator. I mean, how do you solve it? How do you get to the point where what happens is what you just described?
Well, I think we have to stop subsidizing carbon. We have to get a tax on carbon or a fee to discourage people from moving into more carbon-based companies. We have to do everything we can to encourage any alternative forms of energy. In North Dakota, down in Colfax, Richland County, they're trying to get a solar farm out there, but the people are holding back on it. But and we don't know why. We're a big coal state, lignite state, and I think it's just competition. They don't want competition. The coal industry doesn't want competition, and solar is definitely produce energy. But it's the cleanest form we've got.
But Ed, that's the power of one man. I know that Sid Berg, Sid's up for election this time, so we'll see how that all shakes out. But and Sid works, or he's on the Cass County Electric Board, and I don't know if that's what motivates him or not. I know that some people in the area, in the Colfax area, can't figure out why he's fighting something that can bring money to the area, but Sid Berg is the one that's putting the war on against the solar farm that could be happening by Colfax. So it is the power of one person, as a county commissioner, Ed, is my point. One person could have a lot of power.
Yeah, and you mentioned the reason why he's on the board of Cass County Electric. Well, Cass County Electric is, they get their electricity through Minn Kota, which owns a bunch of coal plants out west. They don't want anything but coal being burned. Closing down that Coal Creek, they just about had heart attacks out in that area. But we've got to do it. It's got to happen.
Yeah.
It's settled science now. That's the term the scientists are using. It's settled science. There's
Okay.
no more debate. We got a climate change problem. We have to solve it now.
Yep. Thank you, Ed. Thanks for calling in on Earth Day. I appreciate it. Let's get to the Weather Cave and find Too Tall. farm outside Colfax, North Dakota. He was good enough to call in. I want to make sure he gets a chance to speak to that. Sid, good to have you on News and Views.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah. Where are you at? Do you support the project, Sid?
Well, at first I didn't, Joel. To tell you the truth, I didn't like how it was set up. And now that they've changed their footprint, so to speak, it's great for the county. There's no doubt about that. So I'm not against it 100% at all. I feel it's be up to the people to decide what they want, and if they want it on their land, they should have it on their land.
Okay.
That's the people's choice, not my choice, not my decision. I don't know where this even came about that I was so dead against this project. It's far from the truth. I know a lot of people think I am for some unknown reason. I don't know.
Okay.
I think some of it is that I asked some questions at some of these meetings and I didn't get very good answers, and I think people just drew the line there and saying that I'm against it.
Okay, so Sid, when you say it's up to local, are you talking about the landowner, the township?
Yes.
Okay, the landowner themselves, you're saying?
Landowners and the town. Well, yes, landowners. The people that live in the township should decide if they want it or not.
Okay, but Sid, I'm not trying to pick a fight. We've been friends for long. I've known you for a long time.
Yep.
So if Joel Heitkamp owned a quarter of land, they wanted to put a solar farm there, and I said, you bet I'll sell you the land for that, you would vote to support that at the county commission level?
I would. It's your land. You should be able to do what you want to.
There. Then you know what, Sid? I'm glad you called in, because I did say that you weren't in favor of it earlier, and I apologize if I misspoke. It was my understanding from speaking to some people there. So I do thank you for calling in.
Well, that's why I called, Joe, because I wanted to set the record straight. I'm not the bad guy here.
Yeah. Well, Sid, we worked together on a lot of things. Sid used to be on the rural telephone, and we did a lot of projects together. So I hit your lines a lot of times putting water in, Sid.
Yeah, I know it.
You bet. Thank you, Sid Berg. Ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, does he know he's coming on? We don't care. We're going to call him anyway. Bill Anderson's going to join us. And then those of you who get mad at me because I'm not able to get him on each and every Friday, stay tuned. We're getting him on today, unless he doesn't answer. We'll be back with more News and Views right after this. It's our radio network. Let's head on down to Rutland to that old country lawyer, Bill Anderson, you don't say former Marine. I made that mistake again. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Bill, good to have you back on News and Views.
Good morning, Joel. Good to be back.
I had a conversation with someone, and you can clarify this and then say Joel was right and they were wrong, which you and I both know doesn't always happen. So I tried explaining that Russia used to be a monarchy and that was part of what happened in the overthrow of Russia. Now, am I right or am I just partially right?
Well, what happened in the overthrow? I mean, in 1917, the Tsar was overthrown, and those parts of the Russian Empire, such as Ukraine, Belarus, many other parts that were part of the Russian Empire, they went on their own. Finland was another, and then during the Civil War that followed the end of World War I, they were basically reconquered by the Red Army, and were basically the people who had run them as independent countries either were chased out or were stood up against the wall and shot by the communists, and then they became republics within the Soviet Union. Yeah, but they for a brief period there after the Russian Revolution, the Ukraine was on its own. And of course, before it was part of the Russian Empire, Ukraine, the bulk of it back in the 1200s had been part of a country called Ruthenia. And at one time, a big chunk of the Ukraine, along with what are now the Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and a large chunk of Poland were part of Sweden. And then a large part of Ukraine was part of Poland, and part of it was part of the Russian Empire. Then Poland got gobbled up by Russia, Prussia, and Austria, and then the Ukraine was like the area where Lviv is at. That was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and part of what's now Ukraine was part of Russia. The city of Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine, was originally founded by the Vikings about 1,000 years ago as a trading center where they engaged in mercantile activities with the local populace and interacted with the Byzantine Empire that was to the south, the Eastern Roman Empire. They interacted with them, and then later on, when the area was conquered by the Ottoman Turks, they interacted with them. The Crimea, for many years, up until the 19th century, was part of the Turkish Empire. So it's the whole thing has been, there's been times of relative independence, times where it's been dominated by larger powers, and since 1991, it's been an independent republic. Although you have to go back to 1945 and the formation of the United Nations, when Stalin insisted that both Belarus and the Ukraine were independent republics and entitled to seats in the General Assembly of the United Nations, along with the Soviet Union. And so as far as the United Nations is concerned, the Ukraine has been an independent nation since 1945.
Bill, the geography and two geographic questions here. The first or I shouldn't say the first. The second's going to end up being the difference between East and West Russia, because it's so big geographically. I think that people like myself don't realize how diverse the country itself can be, but the importance of Ukraine to Russia and to Vladimir Putin, that would take it beyond just a pride issue. The importance when it comes to water and other things. Explain that to folks.
Well, I mean, obviously economically, the Ukraine is tremendously rich agriculturally. The whole area of the Ukraine is, we think that the Red River Valley is something where it's where we have 6 feet of topsoil and all of this, but the Ukraine has basically been a grassland for over 10 million years, and for most of that period of time, all but the last couple of thousand years, there were no human beings there. So there's a massive buildup of vegetative material that has made the soil of the Ukraine, and it's many, many feet deep, and it is tremendously rich, and they produce a huge amount of grain and other foodstuffs that have fed the Russian Empire and later on the Soviet Union for generations upon generations. So, it's tremendously important from that point of view, and also for the access to the Black Sea, which is a warm water port. Of course, they have the problem of at the south end of the Black Sea, the Turks control access to it from that point, which is part of the problem that there's been between the Turkish Empire and the Russian Empire, and later the Soviet Union for the last 400 or 500 years. But anyway, warm water ports have been a huge goal of Russian foreign policy for at least the last 400 years. So they're still looking for it.
And part of the reason I'm going to ask you the next question is because we, as a country, go back to 1776. And we think of that as a long time versus what you just described. I recently spoke to a friend that was traveling Europe, and he said, the one thing that he left with was how young of a country we are. And so I guess my question relates to the geography and the history of East Russia versus West Russia and the economic interests and the focus on the power being in the West. But I want to let you speak to that.
Well, East Russia, the eastern part of Russia, and of course you got to remember that Siberia is part of eastern Russia, and Russia covers 11 time zones, so it almost goes halfway around the world in its land area. But the eastern part of Russia and its outlook on the world was formed by its contact with Asian people like the Mongols, who were not exactly gentle in the way they treated Russia and other countries that they at one time dominated. Now, the western part of what was the Russian Empire, like the Ukraine, were influenced more by contact with Poland, Germany, and those countries of Central and Western Europe that historically have had although they certainly had their share of violence, they've historically been less violent and probably more enlightened than the Russian experience in the eastern part of the country.
Okay.
So,
I have one more question for you, and I know we're not going to have much time when I get back, but Bill, hang in there. Abby found you, and we'll find you again if you ditch on us, whether you like it or not. So let's head to the weather cave and find Too Tall Tom. last question, I promise, in the couple minutes I have left. But I don't see how you end something like this war in Ukraine. I mean, does Ukraine have to give something? Do they, to get Russia to quit? Do they get a certain region? I mean, how do you resolve this old history that you just described?
I think, this is my personal opinion, Joe, I think this ends only one way, and that is that one side wins and the other side loses. It's like Ronald Reagan said when somebody asked him about his strategy for dealing with the Soviet Union. He said, "We win, they lose." I think that it's either going to be Ukraine wins and kicks Russia out of their entire country, or Russia wins and reconquers Ukraine. The way it's going right now, Russia is not going to win. That could change, as it did in World War II when Stalin finally found a competent general named Georgy Zhukov, who organized the counteroffensive at Stalingrad, defeated the German Sixth Army, and then led the Russian army across west to kick the Germans out of all of the Soviet Union, and eventually out of all of Eastern Europe, and eventually to capture Berlin. But I'm not saying the Russians can't do that, but the way they're conducting themselves right now, I'd say the advantage is with the Ukrainians.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. Just one.
By the way, Joel, you are right. You're right.
Thank you. I never
Don't say things like that to him.
I've never heard that before.
Okay.
I never. Okay. I've got less than 1 minute left. What would happen in the 1980s? Now, that isn't far back in history to make you go. If somebody had supported on national media Vladimir Putin. 30 seconds, Bill.
What would have happened?
Yes.
That national media would not have lasted 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. And by the way, I'm getting messages from Marines, and they're saying Semper Fi. So there you go.
Semper Fi to them as well.
All right.
Thanks, Joel.
You bet.
Bye.
I enjoy them as much as you do, folks. I realize we aren't always able to do it. I want to let you know the Cruiser is sponsored by the North Dakota Farmers Union and North Dakota Association of Rural Electric Cooperatives, Pifers, Auction, Realty, and Land Management, Nielsen Brand Law, and Broadband Association of North Dakota. We had a good week, Abby.
We did.
It was a lot of fun. And thank you to all of you. We had a lot of phone calls this week and a lot of great conversation. You know what we're going to do next week, Abby?
Have another good week.
Do it all over again.
Coffee with KFG on Thursday.
That's right. Good riding with you, folks.